Good morning, everybody. We are back for Sound Booth Part 2. And I've just rolled in here this morning, did some office work already, and now we're getting ready to do some painting because the sound booth has been textured. Surprise! Did this yesterday. As you can tell, the mudding has been finished, which is probably not done on the end of the last video. So I apologize, I can't bring you on for everything. Sometimes the schedule just doesn't allow me to bring out a camera, or there's too many people around to film, or all the excuses you can think of. But anywho, let me turn you around and show you what's going on. I think when we left off last, we had done one coat, maybe 2 coats of mud on here. We did a total of 3 coats. And let me show you some up close stuff. As you can tell, the old sound booth used to have a countertop that went here, and it was all kind of scarred up on the wall. So you kind of see where I mudded up around where it's extra white. And then the kind of splattered look is where I've sprayed the texture. So this corner is nice and straight and clean. All of our outlets were taped off, so they're still taped off, but we're gonna work on painting today and putting that sound bar in, and then outlet covers and trim and countertops and the top of the wall and all that stuff. When you're spraying the textural, I should mention, you wanna make sure you kind of fade it out into the wall. That way it's not like if I just sprayed a line here and a line there, you would see it really bad. So make sure when you spray a little bit pattern and then mix your pattern. So I spray this way first and then up and down second, and it should fill in the spaces nicely. Now, sometimes you're still gonna get, see, I can get the light side of the wall here. Some of these bigger little nuggets on the wall, you can come back before you paint and knock those off. Usually I just use like one of these, and you just run it along the wall really fast, and it'll knock all of the big stuff off, which is nice. So I'll run that over that before I paint, and then we'll get painted that color all around, and then we'll be able to get all the stuff I just mentioned installed. But you may not have noticed, or you may have noticed that there's carpet underneath of this. The carpet guy was here yesterday, and I said, hey, we've already got this built, would you mind carpeting this as well? And he said, no problem. So he carpeted it. It looks real nice, and I can't wait to show it to you because it's got that trap door that goes across here where those wires are going to run through, and it's going to look good. So I'm excited. So with no further ado, let's get into some painting and get some stuff done. But as I think about the paint, let me show you something else we've been doing kind of on the side. I haven't been filming this, but I've been doing it at the same time as the sound booth. So one of the things is yesterday we put in the cove base along the bottom of the wall. It's that brown stuff. And then I didn't have any clamps with me because I don't have my truck because it's still broken down. So I had to make my own clamps, which is just some 1x2s and some screws and a few pieces of shims, and that holds it in place while the glue dries. So pretty neat. And then the baptistry in here, which is where people get baptized. If you're not familiar with the religion of a baptism, not necessarily the religion of baptism, but religions that have baptism as part of their service, this is a baptismal tank, and you fill it with water, and people get baptized. Usually they get saved, part of the church, and then they get baptized as a sign of their faith in God and following all that stuff. But anyway, so churches have baptistries, and this one has a full tank. Some will do the sprinkling and stuff. That's what they do, but this one has a tank. So they call this room the baptistry. Long story to tell you what this is for. But in here used to be a half wall up to where you can see the new wall beginning. And on the outside, it used to be the same with some trim above the window here. But we made the wall go all the way to the top. And on the inside, we haven't finished yet because people don't see it and like to get the outside finished first. So we got that mudding done, or drywall up there, and then the first coat of mud up there. And then we've kind of cleaned out the area in preparation for painting, and we're gonna put shelves around here. So spoiler alert, future video, hey, don't eat that. Might have shelves up there. So I've got Copper with me today. He's eating some wood, which is fine. Not very nutritious, but keep him busy. So anyways, let's get some paint, start some painting, and catch up with you next when we do something different besides painting. front side and the back side have been painted. I even painted that wall, as you can tell. It's not painted again, but I'll explain that in a second. This back side of the wall has been painted twice. That way I can start working on these outlets and covers and stuff. But the reason that this no longer looks painted, it looks like it's been textured again, is because I had to texture it again. So let me explain why. And this, looking at the wall here, you can see a bunch of business. If you look at the wall here, it's kind of globby and big, kind of just gnarly looking and thin and sparse, but I can't really recreate that on the whole thing because that would just be ugly. I prefer a real nice clean orange peel like this, but I can't. When I did that spray, I sprayed this area, I even faded it out. But when I painted it, it had a gnarly looking line right here. And so I had to come back through, turn the air pressure down on my texture gun. And then when I sprayed it, it made some more globs in this area. So I faded from globbiness to less globbiness as best I could. There's not much I can do. This whole auditorium is just full of random texture. Like there's some texture in places and some and not in other places. It's all around the whole place. So that has been faded. So that's what's going on there. I didn't do it on camera because I had someone I was talking to while I was doing it. And it's just easier to do that way. So not a big deal, but that's why I didn't show it to you. So I'm letting that dry and I'll come back and paint it. But in the meantime, we're gonna stick outlet covers on these because those are finished and wired, which is really nice. If I haven't mentioned, this first outlet here is surge protected. So everything that is plugged in from here and beyond, because it goes in a loop like this in the inside of the wall, is protected by a 15-amp surge protector. So all the sound equipment that gets plugged in there, mostly computers, won't get fried if there's a electrical problem or a lightning strike or whatever happens. They won't get shocked, so that'd be good. So I'm gonna come back through, put some plates on these. These up here will be different because I'm gonna put a trim board along here. And the reason I'm doing a trim board, I'm actually doing a trim board on the top and then around the perimeter, but this one's gonna be at 1x6, like this big instead of a 1x4 or 1x3 that I'm gonna do over here. But these USBs or USB outlets right here, so I can open up so I can show it to you. They are, well, that's a little difficult there with one hand, but they're deeper than these regular outlets. These outlets are like half the depth of these, and so they're not gonna fit in the box. I'm gonna have to extend it, but it's not a big deal because I'm gonna have a piece of trim there. So I'm gonna put these in the trim, and then I'll use these screws to anchor it here. And there's a box extender I'll show you possibly later too. So with all that said, let's get into putting the outlet covers on together. Maybe I'll just do one with you. It's not the most exciting thing, but if you've never done it, you've never done it. So here we go. Set you up here and we'll get started on the first one. Okay, so on these outlets over here, usually I have the camera facing towards me so I can see myself talking if I'm in frame. So if I'm not in frame, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure I am because I can usually see from here over. So this is a double gain outlet. It has two regular outlets. That'll work for this one if you can see it. So we'll put that one there, but on this side over here, we've got the surge protector outlet, which is square. And then we've got the regular outlet. So we're gonna need one of these that has a square and a regular. So you can buy those in a whole bunch of different. This is a single that you would use for like up here. Got one of those. And then this one, as you can see, has the square and the regular. So I'm gonna cut this open real quick and install it. So it'll come with the proper screws for this. Now, if you've never done it, you've never done it. So here's two short screws and one longer screw. So on the squares, they don't have a lot of room for the screws to go through because they take up so much space. So they send you the shorter screws, that way it doesn't run into something. And then the longer screw goes into the regular outlet. So if you're wondering why there's different sizes of screws, that's why. So I'm gonna open up the long screw and then put this on here, and you can adjust these and make them level. But mostly you need to make sure that they fit. So it's perfect, it just fit right in there. So sometimes it doesn't, you can take your screwdriver, try not to short it out, but you can move it over however you need to tap it. So long screw goes in here. And if you are attention to detail, you'll notice I always stick my screws to where the flat facing is this way. Most electricians face them this way, but I like them this way better, so that's what I do. And as far as the small ones, we'll stick those in real quick as well. facing the screws horizontal. So there's a couple different outlet covers that you can get. Like I was saying, there's different sizes, different types of them. But as far as the plastic, there is regular and there's premium or plus. These ones that are plus are a little more pliable, and so when you tighten the screw down, they don't crack. But if you buy the cheap ones that are just plastic, they're gonna crack on you if you tighten the screw down too much. So spend the extra few cents and buy the ones that are more of a nylon instead of a plastic. That way they don't break and you can tighten them down. And sometimes if you have a wobbly outlet that you can't really secure properly, you can use a plate to secure it a little bit more. But if you use a regular plastic one, you tighten it down too much, it's going to break on you. So buy the plus nylon wall plates. They're a little bit bigger too, so they hide a little more flaws. Thankfully, when I cut this wall out, I really did a great job at making these boxes as little cut out as possible around them, so there's not a lot of flaws there. But when you're doing remodels, you don't always have that option. So let's put the rest of these on and do something else. Just like that, the outlets are installed. You can see even with the covers and everything, super pretty. Looks like a brand new house. Let's see if I can get that focus. Oh, that looks terrible. It looks good in person, trust me. But camera lens is a little messed up, but it looks like I said, like a brand new house. Very nice. And then I went ahead and installed this off camera because it was quite a bit more difficult. We ran a pigtail off of this outlet down to here with the MC cable, and it's attached through a rubber grommet right here. And then it's screwed into the studs. That way this is super strong. That way when they unplug it, it doesn't rip off the wall. Because if we just use anchors, it'd have the chance of ripping off the wall. So we've got 6 additional outlets there and 2 USB outlets on the end, which is super nice. And then these 2 will be outlets with USBs, which brings me to my next point. We finished the painting and the second coat. There'll be a few touch-ups, and like I'm gonna be replacing this outlet over here because it used to be cream colored. Now it's all painted white, but it doesn't matter because I'm gonna be replacing it. So the wall's all painted the second time, both sides. Now we have to move on to putting a board like I was talking about across here. And the board is right here actually. And it's just a 1x6 knotty pine. We're gonna sand it and stain it to match the stage trim, which will be nice. And we're gonna have a bigger board like this on the ground there as the cap board, and then another board, a 1x3, 1x4 on this side. And then wrap it around. It'll be really nice, but we're gonna start with this board because it's most complicated because we have to cut squares in it where these outlets go. That way we can receive these new, bigger USB outlets. So with no further ado, let's get into doing that. So what we've done to figure out exactly where those outlets are is we've measured from this direction, from this wall to the edge of this outlet, and then to the other side. And write the measurements down here on the wall. So for this side, it's 20 7/8 from the wall. This side is 24 3/4. And we're going to cut it right there on the distance from this side to this side. And then for up and down, it's 2 inches down from the top to here. And the boxes are approximately 2 inches wide. So I know that makes the bottom measurement 4 inches. So 2 inches down to 4 inches down. And that will create our measurement of the box. And we do the same for this outlet here, for this little plug-in thing. The outlet here and the outlet here. And what we always got to do is cut this 1x6 to measure from this to the very end, and that was 91 1/4. So I can cut that down, and then I will start marking the holes, and I'll cut it with I have other tools that I usually use, but today we're going to use the Dremel tool to cut those out. So let's get started. Have been cut and they have been installed. Check it out. So those square holes that we cut, like I was saying, are going to go where the outlets go. And I wired in the USB outlet here, and this one will get put back in once we stain. but it looks pretty nice. I haven't fastened it yet. The only thing holding that board in place is friction from being cut perfectly and from those outlets holding it to the wall. So now that those are in, that is the main hardest part right there. We can get that sanded and stained, but we're also going to do a piece coming this direction and a wrap around the wall and come around the perimeter. And then, like I said, the countertop on top made out of a 1x8 or 1x10 or 1x12, depending on how big we want to go. And the next big important thing, besides the floor trim, we'll trim around here, around there, and then here, and then we'll probably do cove base in here like we've done for the rest of the auditorium. And then we will come back and mount the countertop, which we are using a butcher block countertop, which is pretty sweet. I'll show it to you over here. Now they're kind of spendy, but they sell pieces of wood like this called butcher block. And it's just a bunch of wood laminated together and used as a countertop. It's pretty sweet. So we're going to use that, and we're going to stain it the same color as everything else, and it will look quite sharp. And we're going to mount it at the countertop heights right here, and then all the wires will be able to flow off of the back, because we're going to, instead of putting the countertop up against the wall, we're going to leave like a 2-inch gap here. That way all the wires can just drop behind and they can plug in wherever it's convenient, which will be really sweet. So I'm at the end of today's workday. So tomorrow I'll be back doing the rest of this, because today is Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. So we got a few more days to work. Well, one more day to work, and maybe Saturday we'll come back if we run out of time to plug in all the stuff and see if we can get some sound going for the church building. So we got some cove base to finish there, and then all of that I just mentioned, but it's looking pretty nice. All the paint is dry and it looks good. So hope you're enjoying this project with me so far. We will see you in like half a second for tomorrow. Okay, we're back. It is the next day, and I have got some stuff done that I need to explain to you, but currently my wife is assembling a vacuum cleaner. So I'm gonna help her with that while I explain this to you. So we have been working on the sound booth, and it's one of those things where there's like a lot of decision-making things that need done, so it's hard to film it because you just see me standing around measuring stuff for an hour. So here is what we got done. We've got the countertop temporarily installed using some 1x4s as the cleats down here. Now we'll probably have to add some additional support in the middle because of how heavy the stuff on here might be, or if someone sits on it. And the framing in that wall, instead of being like a traditional house where they go up and down like this, they're every 2 feet. And so that doesn't actually hit anything that supports anything. So I'm gonna need to support that better with probably some vertical pieces going this way. But for now, it's just a test fit. And then we've got the outlets, like we saw in the last or yesterday's video, wired in here, and I've got the covers on just for now to figure it out. And then I wanted to raise the wall a bit because that soundboard that's over there underneath that window is about 8 inches tall, and I don't want it to be seen from behind. So I'm raising the wall a bit with this 2x4 here, secured down to the top of the wall. Then we'll bring our trim up to the top on the back here like this. So I've got this piece temporarily on there. That piece is gonna come up to the top of that 2x4, and then we're gonna use this board as the countertop where I got these cut. And those are gonna go here and then right here. So what I got left to do is to do the trim around the top and then trim around the bottom of the wall and then install the countertop. And then we're gonna come back through with some putty and fill all the holes and then sand everything so it looks nice, and then we can stain it and put the clear coat on, and then we'll be on the home stretch. So anyways, I'm gonna get to this and then help my wife with the vacuum that she's already got put together. And I'll catch you in a second when I got something cool to say. Something cool to say would be that if you're trying to line up your miters, so this is a miter, a 45 right here, and you bring in another board here, so when you have this first one here, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly where you put it. I mean, you can see it's right flush with the wall there, but if you want to make it perfect, you can take a scrap piece with a miter on it and you slide it up against it, and it can tell you if it's in its perfect place or not. So this is nice and tight fit. And then once this one's nailed on this wall, we'll be able to come back through and dress up the corner if it needs it. A little sanding, that's about it, but it looks about perfect. So we'll do this piece here, and then when we get to this over here, we can use this block to figure out the length between this one and that one. So that's pretty easy. Or you can measure from this corner to this corner, and it should fit nicely. Over here is just a 16-inch piece. So I'm not worrying about splitting this seam on a stud necessarily, because there's so much framing here to nail into. It is split on a stud, so there's a stud right here, just because that's what I'm used to. But if you don't have additional framing like this and you're nailing it just into drywall, it is better if you can put the seam on a stud. So when, for instance, when you're down here where there's not a lot of framing up above that 2x4, you want to split this on a stud. That way it can hold it together. But up here, this is going to be flat to flat, so the new piece will come in and butt up to it. Most people, carpenters, when it comes to finished carpentry, they'll use a miter like this. Then they'll stick one, so pretend that this piece right here is mitered like this one, and then the piece that comes in will miter over top of it. That way they can send a nail right here through both of them, holding them together. Sometimes I'll use a biscuit joint and stick them together that way, but since this one is secured so well, I can get a nice flush joint just with the flat to flat and then nail it. So that's what we're gonna do there. So let's go ahead and cut these and do it all the way around and see what we can make it look like. It's gonna look great. If you're new to the construction scene and you don't know what all the tools do, if you're doing trim work, this is one of the most handiest tools that you could have. It's called a miter saw. It's chop saw, miter saw. Some people call it chop saws, but it's a miter saw because it can do compound angles, which is nice. And so I'm gonna take this piece of scrap board that I have from over there and cut it into that piece that we need for the end of the wall. So I'm just gonna cut one end off with the miter, and then I'll measure with the measuring tape here and get the right size board and nail it on. So let's get started. It would help if I brought a pencil with me. Ta-da. Just like that, we should have a board that is 33 inches long from the inside of the miter to the inside of the other miter. You can measure from outside to outside if you have that measurement too. That's usually easier because you can hook your tape on the end and pull it to the other end, but pretty easy. So miter, we want them facing into each other. That way we can get it nailed on there. So let me show you the miter saw real quick though. If you have never used a miter saw, they're pretty simple. You got a little control, well this one, they're all different, but this one's a little control, and it allows you to slide on an angle here. So there's a 0 degree, you put that little mark on there, so you're stuck right in the middle. This is a 90-degree angle right here to the saw. So if you're just cutting a board, you can cut it straight just like that. And this one chops down or it can slide, which is handy because when you're cutting a finished board, sometimes it'll splinter, so you have to start on one side and work your way across. Sometimes you just plunge all the way through if you're doing framing, but not a big deal. So you adjust this angle here, and you can also adjust the angle of the head, unlocking that right here. You can tilt it, so you can do this and you can do this and get a compound angle, which is super cool. And then to lock it back in place, lift that up and hit 0, and then this can lock both tables in place. So that's pretty sweet. And you can make marks. These things move around, so when you're doing a cut this direction, it doesn't cut into your metal. And then this one has a cool clamp that you can clamp your material down with if you need to, if you want really precision. And on top here, this one has a light and a laser. I don't really use those unless it's dark, but that's pretty much a miter saw. And then a miter saw stand is almost as important as a miter saw because it's super handy. You can use these little arms, slide them in and out if you got long boards or short boards. Works out really cool. And that one collapses down super light, and I love it. So let's go install this board. Okay, after finishing putting that board on, we ended it for the day because we had a lot of stuff to do and a lot of people coming in and out, so I wasn't able to film as much. But let me catch you up on what we've got going on so far. Today is day 3, and I'm excited. Let me show you what we've got going on. Copper's with me today. That way you keep him out of the hair of the house. So anyways, let's show you what we got. So we got a little more trimming done, as you can see. And this morning we had some people here as well, so I was able to do some of the nail filling off camera. Basically, I'm just using a wood filler here, and a little tip, if it gets a little dry, you can add a little bit of water and mix it up, and it's good to go again. So don't just throw it away if it starts to dry out on you. So we've got these filled. This board has a different cup to it, a little cup, and so we're gonna have to come back. We could buy another board like this and have done it again, but most likely that board would have cupped again. So this one's not awful, so we just kept it. And when we sand it, we'll sand it flat here and you won't notice the cupping near as bad, almost at all there. The problem you're going to have is down here. This board is straight all the way across, but you can see there's a gap here. So we're gonna try to tighten this gap up a bit, but then also we may have to come back with a kind of a little trim piece to go here. It'll dress up the step and make it look nicer, but also it will cover the flaws of that board. So yeah, so all the people who watch this when they come here will be like, what? He's a cheapskate. Not really. But we've got a little more trimming to do. We've got the step trimmed there. I didn't bring the trim around the corner because if we put a cabinet there, it won't fit with the trim. And then along the back, we want all the wires to come up there, so we don't want trim there. So we might put trim here, and we might put trim there. Well, most likely there for sure, there, most likely. So we're gonna do that. We got the countertop floating there on some 1x4s. I probably showed that to you already at some point, and we've got all the electrical done. So I've got to come back and take this off, which is just basically slide it out, sand it, and then we're going to stain it and clear coat it. And then we'll have to put some mold bracing down there, and then maybe even some bracing in the middle eventually once we get the staining more done. So I'm in the middle of doing some wood putty. Copper's in the middle of doing a little more winding. All right, bud. And we are going to get some more stuff done. So, and we got to put the auditorium back together because today is Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday, and they're having church in here. So we got to make it look like this over here. So let's get into it. Hey, stop whining. I'm in the middle of unboxing a sander. I'm sorry I didn't let you see me open it, but they're pretty cool. So I needed a sander. I have got multiple sanders, so it's not like I need one. But for this job, everything in the auditorium already is finished. It's been dusted, it's been cleaned. So I need to create as little dust as possible. And the reason I'm sanding it now instead of before I put the boards on is because I wanted to fill all the nail holes with nail filler. And if you sand it, I mean, you can pre-sand it and then sand it again, but I like to sand it all at once at the end. So this sander is going to give me the advantage of being able to hook up a vacuum cleaner to it, which is pretty cool. Looks like Milwaukee upgraded their little systems because it used to just be like a little pressure fit and you hook the vacuum hose to it to be sanding and then pop off. This one has an actual little hook to it, so that's kind of nice. So slide on there, clamp it, and I can put my hose on there. Pretty sweet. Now I have a round orbital sander. Just like this, except for this one's a square, but it can't reach into the corners, and there's a lot of corners on this. And so I'm gonna come through with this, which is new. If you're wondering about price, it's $149 for this, but I was able to get a little bit cheaper because of some pro discounts at Home Depot. Also comes with a filter bag, which is kind of sweet. So it's basically ready to go. Now it comes with some perforated paper, which is nice. I'll probably use that up since I don't have any perforated paper, but you can take a full sheet of whatever size paper, whatever grip paper you want, and then you can cut it into fourths like this. You just fold it in half and fold it in half and it makes a quarter. 4 of these make a full sheet of sanding paper. So this one's already pre-cut, so don't have to worry about it. But if you do use that, it comes with this tool here, and you can stick it on the bottom once you got the paper on there, and it punches the holes in the paper. That way the air will be able to suck through here, so when you're sanding, all that dust is extracted through this. Now it shames me to admit it, but I did not know what this was for until very recent ago. So don't be afraid to admit your flaws, I guess, but every sander I bought has come with one of these. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's like a guard for the sander or something so it doesn't mar up the plastic or the rubber down here. No, that's for punching holes in the sandpaper, dummy, Ezra. So anyways, when we do need this, we'll have it. But we're gonna put this on for now. Put this on, hook it up to the vacuum and do some sanding, and we'll see how far we can get. I also need to install code base, so you might see that next. That way we get the chairs all put back in vacuum. But nice new vacuum. It's got a speed controller here on the side. It's got the on and off button, and it's got the clamps that clamp on the paper. And then this one has a spring clip on the back, and it's nice and new, so it's stiff, but opens up, stick underneath, and then clamp it down. So pretty simple, and this one's battery powered, so battery there. If you get a corded one where it plugs into an outlet, you just have to run an extension cord with you. But I like the cordless ones because if you've already got a hose, you don't want a electrical cord as well. And if you don't have a hose, then you just have this on, then it's really free. You can sand like anywhere you want without worrying about room or electricity. So pretty sweet. So let's get to sanding. That didn't work. Have minutes until I've got to go, so I've got to get all that sound equipment back in the sound booth and then put the chairs here back in that spot. Sorry for that quick movement there, but I need to show you what I've done before I take off. That way we have a clean slate here on the next video. So this is part 2 of the sound booth build, and this is what it looks like. Ta-da! So definitely not finished, definitely not, but I got that trim piece on. And I've got a few things sanded, like we sanded this transition as I showed in that little clip there. We're going to sand the rest of it still, and then I'm going to add this little transition piece here. It's a 1/4 inch thick by 3/4 inches tall. It's going to help transition that step down. It's going to look real sharp. Can't wait to get that done. We got the cove base finished. That way we can push these chairs back. And then while I'm thinking about it, if you're ever doing cove base, you can use, like, and if you look at the video of me doing it, it's a time lapse, but you can see I just used the caulking gun without this, and that works, but this is usually what you use. It squeezes, you put it on the end of your caulking tube, and it squeezes out evenly here, and so when you're putting it on the back side of your cove base, it's nice and even. The problem is that once you get glue on them, they dry up and you can't use them again, so they go in the trash. But if you saw me doing it with just a caulking gun, you're like, hey, there's better ways to do it. There are, and I'm gonna get caught before you eat somebody. Let's see who it is. Our pianos player car. So anyways, I gotta get back to this, but I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you keep watching. The next one should be all finished and should be put back together. It's gonna be a great reveal, so I can't wait to share it and show it with you. Show it to you and share it with you. Anyways, we'll catch you later. Have a good one. God bless.